Well, the new leaders of the ANC Youth League have quite a tough task ahead of them as they prepare to tackle the issues facing the youth. And they've been encouraged to protect the party's vision and hold their seniors accountable. Their national conference is wrapping up today with an address by President Cyril Ramaphosa. I'm, however, joined by political analyst Rebone Tau, who is with me in studio this afternoon. Rebone, thank you for your time. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to the viewers at home.
I mean, the statement that the Youth League is meant to hold their seniors and the mother body to account, do you think this is the top six and the NEC that will be brave enough to hold its mother body accountable?
I think for starters, what this leadership has got a big task outside of holding the ANC accountable. It's uniting the membership of the Youth League. Because the top six that was elected yesterday, there's a lot of questions about the legitimacy of this Congress. And if indeed, yes, they are affirmed by the ANC, because it's not the first time. Even in 2008, the ANC affirmed Julius Malema after young people were not happy, with those results. So, and I think for me, if you would hold the ANC accountable, you must have a mandate from Congress also. As things stand, they've not been to commissions, these people. It's already 2 o'clock. They've just started now for the day, right? They need to go back to their respective provinces today, because this was the last day of Congress. Yeah. The organizational report was not discussed yesterday. That means they have not done a reflection of what has been happening in the Youth League for the past 8 years. So how do you hold the mother body accountable when your status as an organization is not clear? Yeah.
Absolutely. And also, news is coming in that it seems the number of the NEC has now increased from 30 to 46. So we are now seeing, of course, that there's more of a bloated number of NEC members. I don't know if this is a strategy in terms of making sure that all, areas of implementation and strategy for the Youth League will be, of course, implemented by this now bloated number. But will it make a difference to you, seeing that the number seemingly has increased now from 30 to 46 for the NEC?
They've not diagnosed the Youth League. And because when you diagnose the Youth League, it's through the organizational report. So for you to increase the number is based on what? When you have not diagnosed, what is it that you actually need to build the organization? What we are going to see is that the list process is coming up, right? With the list process, you're going to have now the Youth League, having their own list and saying, we want these young people to go to parliament. So then again is that issue going to the ANC, and instead of holding the ANC accountable, you want jobs from the ANC.
It's almost as if they're rewarded.
Exactly. So that's the problem, that you are bloating this thing now to also try and create jobs, for those that will be that are not working, because this is a very crucial time. The next few months, there will be the list process that will be unfolding within the ANC. When
you mentioned the issue around giving them jobs, or suppose even roles within, I suppose, Parliament or elsewhere within a government, is this a way of the mother body trying to manage the Youth League? Oftentimes would hear that the Youth League is rebellious. The Youth League doesn't, always go with the big mother body organization, but challenges it. It has that youthfulness and robustness of young people to challenge. But have we seen a strategy here coming from Luthuli House in managing these young lions, so to speak, by giving them these positions?
Absolutely. Some argue that actually 2007, the building up, that's where the Youth League was sold to the ANC. Because if you remember, the deputy president of the Youth League at the time, Rebone Tau, was even suspended because he was not agreeing that they should support Jacob Zuma for president. He was of the view that there should be a third term for Thabo Mbeki, And some felt, okay, we're going to support Jacob Zuma because we'll get ministerial posts and all that, and this is how the Youth League has survived. I was saying earlier on, people like Stella Ndabeni, when there was a fallout, with the Youth League under the leader of Julius Malema. I remember Stella Ndabeni and Mdumanana, who are also now very active in this process of this conference. They would then get appointed as deputy ministers, after their fallout with Julius Malema as the president of the Youth League. So the ANC has always played that game amongst also dividing young people against each other.
Yeah. Also, I mean, speaking of interference, Fikile Mbalula also being accused of interfering with this process, the elective conference. How much of, I suppose, of an influence does he have now on the Youth League, given that, I mean, he is the ANC's Secretary General, he is the principal out at Luthuli House, and if there are concerns being raised about interference, that should be a call for concern.
I think one must appreciate that him himself yesterday admitted that in 2008, he played a role, building up that conference, making sure that as the outgoing president, that Julius Malema becomes the president. So we can say him admitting it shows that maybe he might. And what was funny also, in 2015, when Colin Maine was elected, if you remember, Colin Maine in 2015 only announced his availability 2 weeks before the Congress of the Youth League. While you had the front runners like Pulema Lamula for the longest time, and I mean, these were people who actually served with Julius Malema, Lamula having been the deputy president of Julius Malema, Pulema being the TG, and they lose to Colin Maine, who just comes out 2 weeks. And who was the convener at the time? Fikile Mbalula again of the task team. So it's of great concern that young people, even today, are raising the issue of him being very central to these shenanigans that are playing out. And I mean, for me, I still raise a concern of the letter that I saw by 7 task team members to the steering committee, raising critical things about the process, and the steering committee not acknowledging that letter, the steering committee not responding to that letter, but continuing with Congress and rushing for an election.
Also, I mean, what does that then mean for young people being headed or led by this group of newly elected top 6 leadership? I mean, we're going to general elections next year. I can imagine that as part of the strategy for the ANC was to make sure that this elective conference is a success, and it happens right before elections. So, of course, they can be able to woo in the youth voter in their way. Do you think they will be successful in terms of luring in the young voter with this leadership, with this NEC ahead of next year's elections?
Frantz Fanon says each and every generation defines its own mission. And you had the generation of 2011 defining its mission actually being economic freedom in our lifetime. And even now, the Youth League still use that theme of the 2011 generation. But the question is, under even the cloud that they were elected, will they define their own mission? Will they fight for their own autonomy? Because right now, the issue of autonomy remained central at this conference of the Youth League. And that's why even Fasia, in her political report yesterday, was very, frank on the issue of the autonomy of the Youth League, that it needs to come back to the Youth League. So they need to define their own mission. And that mission, that means it will have to say, okay, because the twin task of the Youth League is to rally behind the banner of the ANC, young people, but in the main to champion young people's interests. But now, since they have not gone to commissions up to so far, what is it that as they leave Galaga, that they're going to say to young people of South Africa, this is the mandate that we have. We don't know if those commissions will sit and by what time will they conclude. They still have to do additional members, that nomination process, you don't know how. And by the way, once you've voted, people just start gallivanting. You go to commissions, they're empty because there's no one who's interested. And maybe the ANC and the Youth League should start to change from elective, just have a voting congress or voting conference, because discussion documents are never discussed in the main. And that's why every time, like even the ANC, we know that in January, they had to conclude the business of conference.
But Rebone, under the same breath, don't you think there are consequences for an autonomous ANC Youth League? I mean, should a Youth League come rebellious, saying they want their own autonomy, don't they risk that consequence coming from the mother body as seeing that, or seeing them, observing them, perceiving them as not necessarily going with the agenda of the mother body?
The autonomy of the Youth League is about its own programs, right? Having their own programs, running their own congresses without the interference of the mother body. That autonomy speaks about the twin task of the Youth League, which is to champion interests of the young people and rally them behind the banner of the ANC. That is the mandate of the Youth League. And for the longest time, from as I said, building up to Polokwane, that's when you started to see the Youth League being rendered now to factions within the ANC. And I'll take you back. Let's go back to 1944 generation. This 1944 generation comes up with a program of action in 1948. This program of action, they take it to ANC individuals, Quma, and say, Quma, here's a document as the Youth League, this is what we stand for. And Quma dismisses it. Moroka says, I will support that program of action. And that's how Moroka emerges as the president of the ANC. So you need a Youth League that will also, when engaged with the ANC, it must be, there must be content, to say, as the Youth League of the ANC that represent a constituency of young people, we think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we would support a leader that will support these ideas for us to take this country forward, not because of people are to benefit financially from certain leaders of the ANC.
Absolutely, and we know that the financial beneficiation has been quite a concern, Rebone. That's where we leave it for now. Rebone Tau joining me right here on All Angles, discussing, of course, all things that came out of the ANC Youth League elective conference this weekend. We know the new president elected, Colin Malachi, with his top 6 and the NEC. We're expecting the president, Cyril Ramaphosa, ANC president, also to give a keynote address. So as soon as that happens, we'll take it live to you right here on eNCA.